Good morning, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of Community Planning and Economic Development, and the meeting is being called to order on time at 10 a.m. I'm pleased to offer our land acknowledgement that Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. We'll move on now to the approval of the minutes of February 17, 2026. Looking for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Purdy, and seconded by Councillor Saint-Amand. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing no errors or omissions, can we call for the question? Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Contrary minded, nay. The motion has passed. Next item on the agenda is approval of order of business and approval of additions and deletions. I'll ask our clerk if there's any additions or deletions.
Thank you, Chair. There are no requests for additions or deletions today, as received by the clerk's office.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a motion to approve the order of business as presented? Thank you, Councillor Saint-Amand, and seconded by Councillor Daigle-Gammon. Call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising their hand. Contrary minded, nay. The motion has passed. Is there any business arising out of the minutes? None. I'll now call for a declaration of conflicts of interest. Does any committee member have a conflict of interest to declare? No. Seeing none, we'll move on. We have no motions of reconsideration, no motions of rescission, no consideration of deferred business, and no notices of tabled matters. So now we're moving on to correspondence, petitions, and delegations. I'll ask our clerk if any correspondence has been received.
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that there has been no correspondence received to circulate as part of this agenda package.
Okay, and similar question for our clerk with respect to petitions.
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that no petitions have been received by the clerk's office as well.
Okay, thank you. Do any councillors have any petitions for today's meeting? Okay, thank you very much. So moving right along to presentations, item 10.3, and I'll ask Karen McKendry, Senior Wilderness Outreach Coordinator for Ecology Action Centre, to provide a presentation, and we'll be looking for questions from the committee. The clerk will time the presentation and provide a verbal notice when they have 30 seconds left and when your time is up. So when you're ready, Karen, please go ahead.
Thank you for hearing from me today, Chair and Committee. My name is Karen McKendry. I work with Ecology Action Centre. Ecology Action Centre is one of 32 groups that belong to the Sandy Lake Sackville River Regional Park Coalition. I'm representing them today. We've been united since 2018 in calling for the expansion around Sandy Lake Regional Park so that the whole area, 2,800 acres, will be protected. I'm coming to you today to talk to you about HRM planning and some economic considerations at Sandy Lake. Reminder of geographic location. So on this map, you don't have to see all the details of it. The area in yellow is the area that the coalition is calling for the full protection of the area. It's bounded on the south end by Hammonds Plains Road, on the east side by Highway 102. Within it, in the lime bright green, you see HRM's Sandy Lake Regional Park. So you can see that band in the satellite imagery of rivers and forests around the park that we feel should also be included. And in bright red are the areas that are being considered for housing development as part of the Sandy Lake Special Planning Area. The largest one, which is kind of rectangular, is the proposal from Clayton Developments from the Shaw Group. So a very brief synopsis of the very long history of planning in the area. This is a map from 1971. It was part of a planning exercise, the acronym for which is MAPC. This was undertaken by what was then the town of Bedford, the city of Halifax, the city of Dartmouth, and in cooperation with the provincial and federal government to try to find the very top areas to be protected as park in our growing region from both a nature conservation point of view and a recreation point of view. So circled in red is the Sandy Lake Sackville River area. And so from the time of this report onwards for the next 10 years, there was activity and planning by the then town of Bedford to advance a vision for a park here. So there were public consultations, there were meetings, there were discussions with landowners, there was land acquisition, including 1,000 acres given by the federal government to the then town to add to this park. So in 1982, there was a meeting at the Town of Bedford Council in which they changed the zoning on the west side of the park for part of the area to what was called Secondary Development Agreement, or the zoning at the time that would allow some development on the west side of Sandy Lake, given that certain criteria were met. So going forward from the Town of Bedford into amalgamation in 1996, and every planning document since then has also continued to advance the idea of a large park in this area. On this slide, you don't need to be able to read the text, but I just wanted to show you two excerpts from the 2006 regional plan as well as the 2014 regional plan. So in the 2006 one, we see the urban settlement designation, where 6 areas, which we now call future service communities, could be considered to be developed, but, quote, that support the growth of a series of mixed-use, transit-oriented centers in strategic locations that shall consider, quote, protect the fiscal health of HRM and its capacity to meet additional financial commitments. So these areas came with caveats that needed to be considered, and these areas continued into the 2014 plan, but with new required considerations included, including, quoted here, the protection of environment, the integrity of regional parks, the movements of pedestrians and transit services are prioritized over car-oriented design, and that the design includes community scale and site level green infrastructure and renewable energy. So again, both of these plans do advance these areas for potential development with a number of considerations, but I'll also highlight that both of these versions of the regional plan also advance the idea of Sandy Lake as a large park, and over this time you also see land acquisition. So both ideas for the area are being sought in parallel. That brings us up to sort of 2022, 2025. Again, you don't have to be able to see all the details on here, but in 2022, Sandy Lake and 8 other areas were picked as the first batch of special planning areas by the Task Force on Housing and HRM. Not long after that, background studies were commissioned by HRM, and then the successful consultant was Stantec, who completed those studies for Sandy Lake and 3 other areas. So that's what I mean by background studies complete. Clayton Developments also contracted their own studies for the area. These have never been released publicly, but could feed into secondary planning since they have been sent to HRM. And I'll also say that there are a number of other reports for the Sandy Lake area. These were ignored by the consultant, but have been submitted to HRM for consideration as part of their work in the secondary planning process. One thing that has come out since the background studies were completed was there were a couple of reports that came to council in camera in January and May of last year that have since been released publicly or declassified that show a take or some staff concerns about what comes out of the background studies. So these reports, quote, show significant municipal costs that would be required to develop at Sandy Lake, and show, quote, there are other growth opportunities that may be able to support more cost-effective housing in a shorter time frame. So HRM staff also raised the issue of significant flooding and stormwater management potential at the site. So all of that is being considered as part of the secondary planning process now. And you know how the next step goes because it will be similar to other special planning areas that have already been approved. But we're deep in secondary planning now. So this planning stage is very reliant on those background studies, so I want to focus on those for just a moment. So through the RFP, the contractor, who would be the successful contractor, there was quite a lot of detail around the issues that they had to cover as part of their background studies. And by the end of the contract, a number of those which were written into the contract were not completed. So just a couple of those that were not completed was there was no examination of the effects of potential development on Sandy Lake Regional Park. So even though that was in the contract and is in the regional plan, there is no study of that potential effect. There are also, as far as we know publicly, no study of the potential flooding risk on the Sackville River, which is a very serious issue. As I said before, there was long-term lake water quality data that was not used in the background studies, but is available to be examined. And finally, after all the also the traffic studies did not include an analysis of the now proposed Sandy Lake connector between Highway 102 and Hammonds Plains Road, so we don't know the potential traffic implications of that. Finally, after all the background studies were done, as part of the open house last fall about Sandy Lake, the largest developer there, Clayton, revealed a completely new design for the neighborhood. So on one level, you could consider that all of the background studies are now invalid because they were based on a previous design. So I trust now that HRM staff are working really hard to understand the implications of the new design on all of the factors that were examined before. So that's just a little bit of the planning that I wanted to highlight that's relevant to Sandy Lake. So switching now to economics, I know you guys have just been through an extremely challenging number of months through the annual and capital budget processes. And sometimes those things wrap up some really like big ticket and contentious items. These were ones that were in the news that were discussed a lot here as well. One thing I find challenging about the annual budget and the capital budget process is it doesn't wrap up proposed developments in the same kind of package where you can see a line item about what would be the potential costs of moving forward and supporting this development. So the background studies did look at early infrastructure costs for Sandy Lake. And if it was wrapped up in the same kind of way, the proposed development by Clayton at Sandy Lake would involve $203 million in infrastructure costs that would be mostly borne by HRM, some by Halifax Water, and some by the developer in a contribution agreement. So if this was, I think, coming to the fore as a line item in front of council and in front of the public, this is like a really big ticket item that we should be discussing as a package. So I just wanted to elevate that in that way today. There's one other aspect of economics that's not being considered here that HRM has the potential to delve into, but I'm out of time on that for today. So I'll just leave it here for now, but welcome questions about this topic or my presentation now or anytime after this.
Thanks very much, Karen. I'll open the floor for questions. Councillor Purdy.
Thank you very much for this presentation. That's a wow line item there at 203 million. You said you had another economic point that you could raise, but you ran out of time. May I ask what that is?
Yes, through the chair to the committee. So what hasn't been analyzed here is the economic impact of removing the natural assets, right? So we think of you guys have been hearing a little bit more at council about natural assets. So we have our gray assets like tennis courts and buildings, and then our natural assets like forest and wetlands. And it's possible to calculate how much ecosystem services they're doing for us and the monetary value of that. So HRM started this work a couple of years ago with a nonprofit called the Municipal Assets Initiative, or Municipal Natural Assets Initiative, in a small way on the 9 Mile River watershed to look at like what are some of the ecosystem services there and what are the risks to those. But other municipalities have gone farther, such as Riverview, New Brunswick, where they calculated, okay, in this area we're considering a development, it has a number of forests and wetlands. What would be the cost of keeping those in place? Like what are they doing for us now versus what would be the cost of, say, putting in flood reduction and stormwater infrastructure instead. And so we're able to make this apples to apples comparison. And in the case of Riverview, New Brunswick, they made a requirement of the developer for the development to keep the wetlands intact because it was going to save everyone more money than making a new stormwater treatment center. So this is the way we could be moving forward in Halifax. There is this kind of calculation available, and it's not being done so far at Sandy Lake. So there are wetlands and forests there retaining floodwaters. They would be destroyed with their current proposal. HRM could be looking at what is the cost of having those destroyed versus the cost of the infrastructure we would have to pay for.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Purdy. Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering if you could say a little bit more about what you and your group see as the risks of developing Sandy Lake, given that it's such a large sub-watershed and so close to the area in Lower Sackville and Bedford that was flooded in the extreme flood we had a few years ago. Just what the impact will be of development there that we don't seem to have a lot of details about.
Yeah, thanks for that question through the chair to the committee. So a couple of things our group is most concerned about were some of the things that weren't completed through the background studies. So a thorough assessment of what are the flood risks of developing in this area on the Sackville River. So the Sandy Lake subwatershed, like the sub-cereal bowl of the larger Sandy or Sackville River bowl of water. The Sandy Lake subwatershed is the largest one, and a large portion of it is still forested and intact. So if you changed a dramatic portion of that, you could anticipate more flooding on the lower Sackville River. So that, again, can be analyzed through, I don't know if the work can be done in-house or whether it has to be contracted out, but I think everyone has an ethical responsibility to look at the potential risk there, and maybe there are ways forward to accommodate development without drastically increasing the flood risk. That piece of work, as far as I know, hasn't been done. There is the risk to Sandy Lake, which is a municipal asset, right? There's Sandy Lake Regional Park on one side. Important part of that park is the swimmable beach that has a lifeguard, and people enjoy that. The other side of the lake is proposed for development, so I think it's appropriate to examine what could happen to the lake water quality and could it become unswimmable. There are ways to do that. That has not so far been done. The third thing I don't think has been well examined or accommodated so far is wildlife corridors. This is a very large area of land. There are multiple studies that show that it's important to keep some of it intact to create a wildlife corridor, and I don't think that's being done well so far, but that could be done. So 3 pieces of work are outstanding, are some of the 3 most important pieces of work to do here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. Not seeing any other hands, I do have a question, if I may. Karen, you mentioned that there was limited analysis on the impact on the park. Can you give a bit more information on what you would have liked to have seen in the analysis? So what would you like to have seen delved into? I know you somewhat answered it with your response to Councillor Morse, but can you say a bit more?
Yeah, so I mean, I was a little surprised that there are aspects that are quite clearly in the contract that were not completed by the time work was done with Stantec, and they're out of the picture. So one of them is a quite clear line to look at an analysis on potential impacts of Sandy Lake Regional Park, and that's quite appropriate to be in there because, as I showed from the regional plan in 2014, it is one of the required considerations when looking at future service communities. So you could imagine there could be a framework of saying, what does HRM value about Sandy Lake Regional Park? It values having recreational access to the water or having a quiet environment, and then comparing how could this development impact the things that HRM values about its own park. But I've just seen no analysis so far. I haven't seen that kind of analysis before by HRM, so maybe there'd have to be some creative work in what is the framework we want to compare it to, but I've seen none so far. So I think that's one of the greatest risks that people don't see coming, is people might already value these things about this HRM park, and they could be damaged through this development, and then everyone will say, who saw this coming? Like, why didn't we examine this?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, and thank you for the presentation, Karen. I'm not seeing any other questions. Thank you. Okay. So we'll move on to our next presentation, and this concerns a proposal for the delivery of an indoor community recreation facility in Fairview. And we have a number of speakers, Pastor Dwayne McCarty from One Church, and Mark Wasik, who's a project lead. And so they'll be providing a presentation and answering questions from the committee. Now, I was remiss when Karen came up. I know Karen has presented before, so she knows that you have 10 minutes for your presentation. And at 30 minutes, our clerk will provide a sign to show that you have 30 seconds remaining, 30 seconds. I'm really mixed up here today. 30 seconds left so you can wrap up your presentation. So I'll turn it over to you when you're ready. Thank you.
Good morning, committee members. Thank you so much for your time today. My name is Dwayne McCarty. I'm lead pastor of Everybody Growing Church, which is in Stittsville, which is on the west end of the city of Ottawa. I'm here today with my colleague and friend, Pastor Justin McKenzie, who's the pastor of One Church, Halifax, and also our project manager, Mark Wasik. For a couple of minutes, I want to share with you an idea. It's an idea that's going to help your budget. And after I give you the idea, then the project manager, Mark, is going to explain how the idea can work in the city of Halifax. So I've been doing pastoral ministry for about 40 years. I know I don't look that old. One of the things I've observed, and particularly not enjoyed, was an underutilization of church-owned buildings and property, especially in the main worship space, used mainly on Sunday mornings. So during my career as a pastor of growing congregations, I've undertaken a number of building projects where capital has been raised, generous donations of church members, bake sales, garage sales, car washes. The last building expansion that we did at the church where I pastor was in 2016. It was a 12,000 square foot expansion. It cost $1.5 million at approximately $125 a foot. We're designing another expansion now. It's a community gym. It's going to be approximately the same square footage. It'll be a little less complex to build. And probably everybody in the committee knows that after 10 years, the cost of building has gone up very, very significantly. So versus a 1.5 million build, this is going to be a $4 million build, and maybe a little more than that. What we've discovered is there's an acute need for space in our communities for indoor recreation, for basketball, for pickleball, for volleyball. And we can build facilities that will accommodate our Sunday morning worship and can be flipped to recreation facilities for the rest of the week and function as a gym. I'm aware of multiple congregations across Canada that are in need to expand their worship space now, including One Church Halifax. These churches have lands, they have equity, they have capital, and in our case have secured partnerships with basketball leagues and others that are ready to pledge capital and become anchor tenants in these facilities. These are services that municipalities have historically delivered and continue to deliver these wonderful facilities in your city. And the budget is getting harder and harder to manage because costs are up everywhere. If we have a gym in the community where every demographic is enjoying it, and the entire campaign of operating it and building it doesn't have to be carried by the municipality, but it can be jointly carried by other groups, including faith groups. Would that not be a good thing? Faith groups have had many partnerships historically with governments to build hospitals, universities, centers of learning. Let's continue to do what we've started. Let's build some gyms.
Thank you, Pastor. As Pastor mentioned, my name is Mark Wasick. I'm project manager on this project. I have a long history in basketball. I was the president of the Ottawa Blackjacks of the Canadian Elite Basketball League. I've been coming to Atlantic Canada for 2-3 decades for all the major championships, and I have a deep passion and a deep set of relationships with the basketball community here. So this project is centered around basketball, and it's centered around the entire community because, as Pastor mentioned, there's an acute need for indoor basketball facilities across the entire Halifax region. So what I want to share with you today is the details of what we're planning to build and the progress that we've made to date. So So starting with the significant need, we've spoken with, We've spoken with numerous officials, high-ranking basketball officials who run leagues, who run clubs, and they're turning away youth from minor basketball, and it's numbered in the hundreds. So this acute shortage is important to address. Why do we pick basketball? I have a background with some charities in the Ottawa area. A particular charity tells us that 4 out of every 5 new Canadians that come to their after-school program want to play basketball. Not soccer, not hockey, not volleyball, but basketball. Pickleball, for those of us that are familiar with that game, there's large waiting lists across the entire Halifax area. We're meeting with another lady today to work with them as far as them being an occupant in our facility. And there's numerous social and wellness impacts that I've noted here on the slide. So what are our plans in specific? Pastor Justin has a location on Gerstner Street in the Fairview area on the One Church campus. We're going to build a 22,000 square foot facility on that campus, and it's for community use, for the HRM community use. And we really want to emphasize that. And there'll be 2 basketball courts that can be turned into 4 half courts, so we can accommodate as many as 4 different teams at one time. There'll also be 6 pickleball courts. And the complements in terms of the usage, pickleball can be played in the daytime where there's adults and seniors. Most of the youth basketball happens in the evening. So it's a wonderful complement in terms of those 2 particular programs. We also have plans for a food bank. The local food bank has outgrown its premises, and Pastor Justin and his team are working on a design that can include a larger food bank that can accommodate the needs of the community. We've spoken, as I say, to numerous other tenants. These strategic partnerships with these local community organizations have really helped us hone the fact that we've got a viable financial model. I'll get into some of that. But the other thing that is included in our plans and we think is important is the training of young adults and youth. We believe there's going to be up to 5, well, as many as 5 or 10 full and part-time jobs created by this new facility that we believe are going to be taken by younger people who can start their careers managing a community environment. And again, it's this notion of inclusion in a diverse social environment. This notion of universal participation is very, very dear to all of us. So with the remaining time, I'll just take you through the progress that we've made to date. And I think the first thing that we've done here, and we've spent a lot of time understanding not only what it's going to cost to build the capital requirements, which it's going to be between $7 and $7.5 million in our initial estimate, but it's the operating P&L. We're not for profit, so we're not looking to make any profit here. We're looking to ensure that our expenses are low and that we can offer the lowest fees to the users of the community. And so we've got detailed P&L that we're happy to share when the time is right. And we've got a very detailed occupancy model that includes 3 or 4 of the top basketball organizations, a pickleball community, and then other activities. So, and we're working with a top tier 1 bank. About 50% of the cost that I've mentioned is already been committed. And so we're really looking, as Pastor Dwayne touched on, for partners to help us make this a true public and private partnership. We talked about the lead tenants. It's the Halifax Metro Basketball Association, the Bedford Eagles, the Thunder Selects, which is a very large lady and girls focused youth basketball organization, and Basketball Nova Scotia. And we're meeting again, as I said, with the Pickleball Association today. We've already invested some money in a pre-construction. We've got architects that have rendered some initial drawings. We're in discussions with a lot of the leading developers in Halifax. We've got some legal support. And I mentioned the fundraising, the Tier 1 bank engagement, and some provincial and federal discussions to help augment this. And we've got LOIs pending with at least 3 of our main occupants. And with the rest of the presentation just has court renderings. So you see, we've put a lot of detail and thought into what we've accomplished so far. So we're really looking, the purpose of today is to share our vision with you, and hopefully you can detect the passion that we have for this project and how important we believe this project is to the community. And we would looking to solicit your help in whatever manner that can be, whether it's financial or other. So thank you so much for your time and for accommodating us today.
Thank you, Pastor, and thank you, Mark, for the presentation. We'll open it up to the committee for some questions. Councillor Purdy.
Thanks for your presentation. I'm just wondering, have you spoken with our Parks and Rec staff at all about this? Okay, and yeah.
We've spoken with Maggie's team also, and they've been very helpful.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. What's your proposed timeline on this?
So it's in the design stage now, and just working through that. Architects have been contracted to do this work. I'm not sure of Halifax. I know that in Ottawa, the province has put pressure on municipalities to turn around site plan applications in 60 days. I don't know if that's brand new for us, but I'm not making a motion for that. But so we can be ready to come for site plan approval in 60 days. We could have that ready for site plan approval. Depending on site plan approval, we'd work on building permit drawings during that process. And best scenarios, late fall, shovels ready, early spring.
Okay. So this would be run by your organization, not HRM. Do we? Just a question to Maggie there. Do we have examples of this type of partnership? Thank you. In HRM, does that or what would be an example of that?
Through the chair to Councillor, we do have some different examples depending on what the structure were to be. For example, where the municipality might have made a capital contribution for a not-for-profit group, that sort of thing. But certainly, if there's a staff, I understand there's a request for a staff report coming, so that could speak to what kinds of things are in the realm of the possible.
Okay, that's great. This is a great idea. Lots of unused space in churches that could be used for great recreation facilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Purdy. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for coming in. It's always refreshing for those of us in these roles to have community come with ideas that they're also willing and open and ready to contribute, not just financially, but in a very, very strong, healthy way for the public, particularly youth. So thank you all for that. Not only that, for the faith-based piece of it that you do every day for many, many people. So I have a few questions about it, similar to Councillor Purdy asked a couple of them, but so one to help me, and forgive me if I've missed it, but what's the address of the parcel that you would be looking at doing this?
20 Gesner Street. It's right across from Fairview Junior High.
Fairview Junior High.
Just
Thank you.
Backs onto Dumbrack. Yeah, you can't see it right now because it's woods.
And why I'm asking that is anytime you build a facility, large facility that increases parking footprints, increases traffic to the local community, it's important for us to know exactly where any potential for that might be. You clearly have chosen a location. The partial ownership, is the ownership now in the hands of the church, or is it something you're going to need to acquire lands around it?
We actually own that right now. We use about 1/3 of our property. And so on a weekly basis, that particular property has been in church since 1985 when the community developed. Of course, we have a very good relationship with the community. So there's traffic flow there, and that's certainly been one of our considerations. Councillor Morris, we had that conversation as well when we met. There is already a precedent there because of Fairview Junior High for traffic flow. It mostly happens during the day for them. For us, it's been in the evenings, of course, when we're doing most of our programming. But with the gym there, during the day, it would be lighter traffic. And then in the evening, you would see a pickup maybe after 6 o'clock, people coming in to play a game and such. Okay. So, yeah, but we do own the property.
I'm just going to check my time. But so in relation to that, you said you had a very strong community relationship. Have you actually pitched this out in amongst the community? I'm going to ask two questions so that you have time to answer, and I don't run out of time. Community engagement from your end. That's something that is likely to have to be would be required through any kind of work that we would do, because that's a really, really important piece. So wondering what you do. Also, I know there's if we clearly have a precedent for something of this nature, and each project might have particulars that would be important. But one of the most important, I think, that any public funding that would go into an organization like this for a facility like this would be an access agreement that allows us as recreation services, right, programs of our own. If we're going to fund partially something like this, we're going to want some public time and space. So I noticed in the presentation that you did, it spoke about naming rights, things like that. I don't know where it is in front of me now, but the funding is only one piece of it. The access would be a really, really important piece. Now, you folks would have programming as well. 2 gyms, I think, is certainly a great addition to anywhere in the municipality. They're not only needed there, they're needed in many other communities. So funding partners I see as a way forward. So thank you again, and if you could just talk to me about community engagement and what you envision to be that kind of agreement.
So I'll quickly share the governance structure that we're considering. The church, as owners of the land and as main funders of the building, would be the quote-unquote landlord, and we're forming a not-for-profit that includes members of the community and church that would be the operators. So the building operators, for lack of a better term, that would create the relationships with the users of the facility. So to that end, we're in discussions for at least 3 letters of intent from 3 main basketball organizations who, as Pastor alluded to, would commit to occupancy, commit to a certain rate, and then also potentially provide some capital upfront to help us build the building. So that forms the basis of our economics, why we're very comfortable that it's going to be a viable economic model. That's our community engagement. And just maybe review.
Community engagement being the people that live in the general area, being the larger, broader community.
Yes.
Often stakeholders are thought of as the partner pieces, but the community have a huge role in something of this nature.
Yeah, so the Bedford Eagles is one of the organizations that we're working with. They're the largest minor basketball organization in Atlantic Canada. So they have a very large reach. The Thunder Selects is that girls program that Brandon Refuse runs. They draw from all over Halifax, and the MBANS, which is the Minor Basketball Association. There's 480 teams across the entire region that play in that league, and all 3 of them need new court capacity. So those are the ones that we targeted, given it's going to be a basketball facility, and we wanted to make it viable. So does that answer your question?
Thank you, Councillor Kent, and thank you, Mark. You can come back, Councillor Kent. Keeping with the rules of standing committees or the practice, I'll move to Councillor Daigle-Gammon.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I'm going to sound a little hesitant because I feel like I'm hearing a little bit of a disconnect between, so when you listen to the presentation and I see no dollar values in the presentation. So, but then I heard you say 60 days or so many days ready to be shovel ready, and there's an absence of the financial plan. So I'm a little bit curious about that. Do I completely understand the need for more courts in HRM? Absolutely, I do. But I'm a little unclear about what your ask is now, because by the presentation, it looks really early days, but by the ask itself, and so there's a piece in the middle that I'm missing just around the whole costing and funding.
It's a very good question. Can you hear me? Okay, it's a very good question. So for the capital piece, the estimate right now is between 7 and 7.5 million, and the church is going to commit about half of that. And so we're looking for public and private partners to fill in the rest of that. And then on the operating piece, it's about $70,000 a month to operate the facility by our P&L. So I purposely didn't include numbers, but I'm happy to share the detailed spreadsheets that we have and the P&Ls that we've put together to get you more comfortable with the economics of it. So we're just looking to get to match the revenues to that expense, and those expenses include full-time employment. They include money to put away for a capital replacement budget, and also to help pay off the bank loan that the church is going to incur with our tier one banking partner.
So would you be considering supplementing this report with your business plan then? Because in the absence of that, I would feel very uncomfortable trying to make any decision here. I do chair the budget committee, so I'm looking for the business plan and the
fantastic. No, I wasn't sure the extent to which we had to share that,
Sure.
but we're absolutely happy to share that with you and go over it with you in whatever detail to get you as most comfortable as you need to be.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gentlemen, welcome to City Hall. Thank you for the presentation. You know, no surprise to my colleagues here, when it comes to our capital projects, I think partnering is definitely the way we have to go, because if we go our normal route with our budget constraints right now, it'll be forever before we see new construction, new facilities. Just this week at Regional Council, I brought forward a motion about partnering with nonprofit groups and for-profit groups on looking at fire stations and housing. We have to be creative with our capital projects. A lot of conversations in these chambers about the Halifax Forum, and partnering keeps coming up. And we saw earlier presenter talking about the price tag associated with that project. After you guys are finished today, we're going to have the Halifax Mooseheads talking about our partnering opportunity too. So partnering is the way to go. I do have a little bit of confusion also around what the ask is also, and the Councillor Dale Gamble asked about that. You talked about in your presentation, originally the project was 1.45 million, and then it moved to 4.5 million. I just heard you say 7.5 million, so I'm a little confused over how much this overall capital project is. I'm also looking for, is there you're alluding to an ask of financing and helping with advancing permitting, but is there an actual number? And I think that's what Councillor Diggle-Gammon and I were looking for.
I'll just speak to the clarity with the 1.5 million. When I spoke to that was the number of a previous build we did 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I only use that as a scale to show how much building costs have increased. So we're planning one similar project to this in Ottawa, and that's why I've come today with this idea, which is a similar square footage, similar footprint, and that's going to be $4 million. So that's over 10 years. That's the increase. So capital projects are becoming tougher and tougher for faith groups, for nonprofits, for everybody, and municipalities. Yep. And so that's the idea. We have combined vision. Why don't we combine our resources and create these kind of partnerships and make sure that these meet the needs of the community at this point. The 7 million number is associated with the project here from one church in Halifax with the 2 gyms. The one I'm talking about in Ottawa is only 1. So there's that. To address the shovel ready in the fall or the spring, shovel ready, what that in saying that is this: we can be ready theoretically with plans and approvals, believing your staff is for it, and they are. We know they are, but and that we get everything together for a proper application process. So shovel ready, yes. The funding piece, as far as the capital, we're not there yet, and that's why we're here today. And we're still bringing those partners to the table, the basketball associations to their capital. And there's other funding opportunities beyond the government funding opportunities beyond the municipal level in the province and in the federal government, which we are also exploring. So the ask today, we're not ready to propose it,
Okay.
but we are proposing in principle. Are you with us?
Right. Sorry, Reverend, I'm trying to cut you off so I don't lose that run out of time, but thank you for that clarification. I think it's going to be important that, at some point in time, we need to know what that ask is, because I'll look to Maggie and her team. Does that mean if we're coming up with a financial aspect to this, how much is it going to be available for HRM programming in this facility? And there's a lot of questions unanswered because it'll be really tied into what your ask actually is. Partnering creative ways, all for it. And I love seeing a faith-based group come forward on that, and I think there's more opportunities to partner in our community. So I like the concept. There's more details before we can get to that final stage. I look forward to that conversation. Once you actually build the facility, you put up the pickleball courts, Councillor Morris will be the first one to sign up and play there for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mancini. Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks very much to the One Church group for coming in this morning, and thank you all for the thoughtful questions. I'm not looking for any commitment here at all. There's going to be a motion come forward asking for a staff report, asking for staff to go away and work out some of the possibilities here in terms of a partnership. This is new and kind of a creative approach. But I just wanted to say that there is a real gap in the community, in Fairview, in the Clayton Park area, even in Bedford. This would serve quite a big catchment area, but especially in Fairview, there is no youth center. It's one of the few parts of the city that doesn't have a youth center, and that gap has been identified by our staff. So this is really about, exploring the potential of a partnership and what the costs might look like for HRM, what the access might look like for the community, how we could go about this shared facility. The population of this area is really growing, but we don't have any new land. There's not a lot of new land available, if any, and this group is offering to build something on their land in the area that we need a facility. So that's what this is really about. They're looking at it very holistically in terms of the food bank needs there. I think you probably remember this is where we have quite an active food bank run by 80-year-old volunteers, serving 150 people a week and their families, doing a lot of support there, and they spend a whole day setting it up and tearing it down again. So this would help that food bank become more viable in the community and more established. And no question that a staff report, if approved by the committee, would have to look at traffic impacts, because this is a school zone but also a residential area, so there would be traffic impacts. But it's mainly about figuring out what the partnership would look like and how we could have access for the broader community in a place that we have no current facilities. So Councillor Steele has kindly offered to bring a motion forward because I'm not a member of the committee. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. Councillor Kent.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to go back to my question, but I actually think staff report is going to resolve it, but it's not, for me, the community I'm talking about is literally the one you're going to be in. the people who live in that area. They deserve to have really good information coming from you as the proponents. And I think that coming in advance, you doing some form of a community engagement session or sessions that give you that sense of feedback early is going to help you have the buy-in that's needed. It's, the folks that live around there sometimes aren't the ones that are using it. Now, in this consideration, I think that you will find that lots of them do, but I would not take that for granted. Do the work, and again, I probably in a staff report that's going to be addressed from our end. We're only responsible for the pieces that we do, but that's a really important piece of the work that we do here at this municipality, is that we try to make sure our public is well aware of the things that we are considering. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't, but it's still worth doing.
Yeah, I would just respond to that, and that's definitely been our conversations, just about our community. We care about our community. We echo that to Catherine Morse, and so we haven't spoken to them yet, just because we're still formulating all the possibilities. But we do have like I said, we do have a very good relationship. We offer a family fun day. We've done this for years. We do a VBS every summer. It's all free. The community really looks forward to it. So we have good relationships there. We would anticipate that they would want to know anything happen in their community. So we appreciate that and recognize.
If I could just add to
value.
that based on what you said, sorry to interrupt you, but I know my time's going to go quick. Having everything formulated is often the thing that people would rather see you talk to them before. And it might not change your trajectory. It might not change your final outcome. But it's having that conversation with the people who potentially could come up with something extraordinary for you to consider in that project. Or they may bring up things that you hadn't thought of. So that's just 2 cents worth for you to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll take that back to our team and try to incorporate that in the next while. And also want to say thank you to everyone for receiving us today. We really enjoy being here. It's been a great experience.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Councillor Purdy.
Thank you. So I just have some comments here from Councillor David Hensby, who's texting and watching from home, as he often does. He'll text me his comments. So he says, Dunbrack is a control access roadway with limited egress. It would be nice if a bus stop could be there and have a pedestrian way to the site. There's one. They could lose some tax exemption on the property. Even if set up as a not-for-profit, the rental of the facility may deem it as taxable property. So just FYI for that one. And the Federal Build Canada Fund has a community stream application process for not-for-profit groups. So you might have another option for funding through the Federal Build Canada Fund community stream. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Purdy. I saw some chatting there. Were you going to comment or no? You're good.
Say we already discovered that fund, and we're communicating with those people right now. So that's what Pastor McCarty was referring to by other funds we've been looking into. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Stop.
Yes, no, it's, I think we're all looking at that fund. Thank you. Yes. Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions or comments from the committee. I would like to ask Vice Chair Jean Saint-Amand to come to the chair, and I'll put the motion on the floor. I'll ask the clerk if it's okay to proceed. I know you were doing a switch of something. Okay, thank you very much. I move that the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee direct the Chief Administrative Officer to provide a staff report and return to the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee, responding to the request of one church to build an indoor recreation facility in Fairview for community use. Okay, Thank you, Councillor Purdy. I'll just speak briefly. I'm supportive of this. As Councillor Morswell knows, I'm the councillor also in Clayton Park. We share Clayton Park, and I know the need is great for indoor recreation space, particularly for our youth. It's really important. So I'm supportive of having staff work on this and work with the group to find out if there are opportunities for partnership here. So I'll leave it there, and I'll stay here and while the discussion on the motion continues. Correct?
Is there any discussion to be had on the motion? All right, seeing none, we can call for the question. All right, yep. If the clerk can put that up on the screens. I'll give everybody a moment to read that. All right, so I heard the question called. All those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye. And contrary minded? And the motion passes unanimously from the committee. Thank you very much. And I'll turn the reins back over to our chair.
Thank you, Councillor Saint-Amand, and we'll thank the group for coming in today. And you know that there was a motion passed, so there will be follow-up from staff. Thank you. Okay, we've now arrived at the public presentation, the public participation part of our meeting. I'll ask the clerk if we have any registered speakers for this morning.
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that we have no registered speakers today.
Okay, thank you. So hearing that, I will ask if we have any speakers in the gallery that would like to come forward. I'll call for the second time. Are there any speakers that would like to come forward? And for the third time, are there any speakers that would like to address the committee today? Okay, hearing none, we will move on. We have no information items brought forward. And so now we're at staff reports and item 13.1.1, analysis of the costs and benefits of the Halifax Mooseheads expansion proposal at the RBC Dartmouth 4PAD. So we have presenters today. I see Brendan Smithson, our Director of Regional Recreational Services, and Andy Conrad, our Manager of Community Partnerships. So I invite you to make a presentation.
Okay, good morning. As mentioned, I'm Andy Conrad, Manager of Community Partnerships, along with Brendan, to provide this presentation on the report that's before you in response to the proposal from the Halifax Mooseheads. If we look at the, that's too far. The direction from council was from the fall was to return with a staff report including an analysis of the cost and benefits to the municipality, along with a recommendation on the Mooseheads proposal. proposal is in regards to the RBC Center, which is the team's training hub outside of their game day operations at Scotiabank Center. They do their off-ice training and practicing at RBC, and they had felt that they need to expand that training space in order to remain competitive with their program and help with recruiting. So they proposed that they would expand the space by approximately 4,700 square feet, which would double the space, and the entire space would remain exclusive to their use. The proposal also included a small externally accessible public washroom on the back corner in the back parking lot by the volleyball courts, which if we look at the site plan overview, the white building in the bottom left is the RBC Center with the front of the building at the bottom of the screen. Our outdoor all-weather fields are to the right with the volleyball courts to the far back. There is a walking trail that's hard to see that goes off the back parking lot by the volleyball courts, and the proposed expansion is the red highlighted area in the middle of the slide. There are some pathways that go to the back parking lot that would have to be rerouted to go around the expanded space. As far as the financials of the proposal, the key point is the first bullet there. Their original proposal was to have HRM pay for the expansion of the building. They subsequently returned to staff and amended that, where the Mooseheads would pay the full capital construction cost of the expansion in lieu of base rent for a period of time. So that significantly altered the analysis and led to the recommendation that's here today. We would proceed with negotiating a lease with them based on the actual capital construction cost and HRM's determination of market rate for the base rent to come up with the appropriate length of a lease. Outside of the base rent, there's still operating costs and taxes that would be part of the lease. The lease for the new space would be combined with the old space. The existing lease is expiring. The two leases would be combined. The term of the lease would likely be far beyond what New Stadia's contract is to operate the facility, so the lease would be completed with HRM, combining the two spaces, where there'd be the operating costs and taxes would apply to the entire space. The interior fit up and equipment for inside the space is a typical cost to the tenant, and that remains the case for this one. It would not be part of the calculations for the term of the lease. Okay. The resulting impact to HRM, the top bullet there is we would need to have an owner's representative with the project, a consultant that would look after our interest and ensure that while the Mooseheads have reputable contractors, we would have some oversight to ensure the tie into the existing building is done properly. And the estimated cost to that is $50,000 to $100,000. We would gain this expanded asset at no capital construction cost. Outside of the Mooseheads lease, the washroom, though, would be our responsibility, be HRM operated. The operating costs for opening and closing and cleaning would be absorbed into the RBC operating budget and completed by RBC staff. As the owner of the asset, though, we would be responsible for repairs and maintenance. We have an estimate of $14,000 annually for repairs to plumbing and vandalism based on what we've been told is the average for our outdoor washrooms. That's not included in any budget at the moment. The other municipal benefits or benefit to the public, I guess the main direct public benefit is the bottom bullet point. The washroom would serve the volleyball court and the walking track. Though we don't have, it's not identified as a place that we were going to build a washroom, it would add to our inventory and be a public benefit. The indirect benefit is the general benefits to HRM of having the Mooseheads overall as our main tenant in Scotiabank Center. drawing business to the downtown and keeping Halifax on the national radar for sporting events. There's no indication or guarantee that doing this project would allow the Mooseheads to remain competitive or have any lead to any additional success that would impact those indirect benefits, but it's overall support of the club that's part of our city. There are a few minor benefits that aren't listed on the slide, as far as there would be some community events that we would ask the Mooseheads to host teams in their space. There would be some property tax revenue that we didn't include in the report because we don't have a firm calculation till the lease gets registered with PVSC, but there'd be a few other little benefits there. That led to the recommendation to direct staff to negotiate a lease for the combined space, old and new together, with clauses in there to protect the requirements around the construction, and then return to audit and finance with more detail on the cost of the consultant that would be required to proceed once we had negotiations with the Mooseheads completed. The last slide is around the next steps, which would be, if this was approved, we would direct the Mooseheads to complete their final design of their project and start working with our facility design construction people to come up with a construction plan. As well, concurrently, we have community or corporate real estate work with Parks and Rec to help us negotiate a market rate lease with the Mooseheads. That's the end of the presentation. We'd be happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Kent for the first question.
Very much. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Quick question around, I'll speak to the motion and all that when it sits on the floor. The exclusive use, it is theirs, I get all that. Currently, they're using space in the other rinks. What happens to that time? Does that then become free space for our public organizations and such?
The training space is at RBC now. They're just going to expand it further, and that's for their off-ice training. The practice time they use at RBC would continue to be, it'd be part of the negotiation of the lease.
And so on that, if they're staying there, I have had organizations say to me that there's just not enough ice space in HRM, and that particular space is hard to get. I think there's 2 rinks there, right? Or four, and they're hard to get. And when they are being utilized, some of them have no bleachers. No, it's not conducive to the tournament style events that happen at the local level. So I'm just wondering is there potential for a net gain for the capacity of the public beyond the Mooseheads? Not necessarily on that rink. I get that that's an exclusive, and I can support that, but it's all the other that is still at play.
Through the chair to the councillor, in terms of this proposal, there wouldn't be an impact on ice time because there wouldn't be a change from that perspective, and there isn't an increase. We are well aware that there is a shortage of ice time and facilities within municipality, and there's a report coming back in a little bit around that one as well. Okay. So we'll have more information around that.
Good, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Cuddle.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just a quick apology to the committee. I was attending the Titanic anniversary this morning, which is why I was late. Thank you. So, yeah, I've got a few questions about this one, and just, to clarify, I mean, this is about the addition of the gym on the existing center. A couple questions. What we're experiencing right now is that with any project proposal, we're seeing a lot of cost overruns happen. The estimate here, is this a verified estimate? And if there's cost overruns on the project, who is responsible for that. Second question, I mean, not that we anticipate the Mooseheads folding, or nor do we want to see that, but should the team fold or there be a change in ownership of the team, this might be kind of, I see some hand signals going on here. Am I treading into territory? I'm good? Okay. I'm just wondering, is there a buyout clause? How will that be calculated? How will that be handled? Is that a consideration? I note that you're doing a market assessment to determine the length of the lease. I'm assuming that, the lease will reflect kind of the be based on some kind of repayment of the asset that, to the Mooseheads for building it. Just wondering do we have any idea, like any ballpark of what that is? And finally, fourth question is about the bathroom. And when we talk about getting public benefit in return for partnership, I'm wondering, is there a demonstrated need for this public benefit? Is this something that's needed and desired? And I say that knowing that we need bathrooms everywhere. We certainly don't have enough bathrooms. But I recall that there are outdoor bathrooms associated with the soccer field, I believe. I'm not sure about the volleyball courts, but I'm just want to make sure that we're getting something that we need, and then it's demonstrated. And is there something else that we might ask for if it's not? Thank you.
Through the chair of the council, I'm going to do the best to answer all of those questions for you. I think we were able to do that. In terms of verification of the cost, we haven't gone in depth detail with that with the Mooseheads, because we're kind of waiting for the direction from council to be able to move forward. On a general assessment, the costs are aligned with what they put together. In terms of cost overruns, that would be the responsibility of the group that's building it. So that wouldn't fall on us in terms of that. The Mooseheads are the ones that are proposing to pay for the construction of the complete facility from that perspective in terms of that. In terms of you talked about if the team is no longer here or ownership change, that would be part of the contract negotiations as we go forward with that, which we haven't got into yet from that perspective, just in terms of we didn't have direction from council to be able to do it. We've engaged with the Mooseheads more around just the understanding of what the proposal was looking like from that perspective, but understand that is a component of the negotiations going forward. Sorry, I'm just going to make sure. In terms of length of the terms, the Mooseheads have proposed 20 years in terms of the length of a term, in terms of what they presented. Again, that'll be part of the negotiations from that perspective, but that's kind of the length that they're looking at long term is the best way to describe that from that perspective. And in terms of the washroom, from a public benefit perspective, we have engaged with Volleyball Nova Scotia from the volleyball courts that are in the back. It would be a benefit for their perspective. In saying that, it is a single stall washroom, so that wouldn't replace the current need for porta potties that they have there. It's not a multi-stall use, so we wouldn't be able to do that, but it does present a better option for the courts that are back there. And there are quite a few walkers on the back of the trail that often use the RBC washroom and have to come all the way around to the front. So there would be an opportunity to be able to use the washroom from the backside. I will also note that in terms of discussions with the Mooseheads, they're 100% supportive if it wants to be something else, if the municipality sees there's a different need from that perspective. So it's not identified within our washroom facility, our washroom plan. We normally wouldn't build a single entity as that one. It will be accessible, but there is a benefit to the volleyball courts from that and the walkers where they currently are within that facility from that perspective.
Okay, thanks. I have some follow-up questions, but I'll come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We'll go to Vice Chair Saint-Amand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm imagining my question is going to lean largely into the contractual territory. I'm curious to know what the impact is of an expansion like this on the naming rights contract that RBC has on the RBC Centre. I know that our contracts would commonly have clauses that would demand upkeep of a building, but expanding a building and adding additional services, additional value to that building may or may not have been contemplated in the contract. And I'm just curious what that does to the naming rights there. They were conferred in 2018.
Through the chair to the councillor, it wouldn't impact the naming rights that is currently in place in terms of the agreement that is in place with the RBC, is that it is the entirety of the building. And so this being a new addition that is added as part of the building would be confirmed as part of that building. So there wouldn't be an ability to change the naming rights as it is currently within an agreement. Obviously, when the agreement is expiring and going out from there, there may be an opportunity to have further discussions from that perspective.
Okay, so the idea of expanding and making a building better and therefore more valuable under their naming was not something that was addressed specifically in the contract?
No, that wasn't specifically addressed in the contract from that perspective, but it does indicate within the contract that it is the entirety of the building and this is connected to the building, so it wouldn't be considered as an addition from the discussions that we've had from that perspective.
Gotcha. Okay, so it might just play into future naming rights.
Correct, and that would depend on what the market bears for what comes back from that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor St. Amand. Councillor Daigle Gammon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. This is interesting. I remember when the Mooseheads group came and presented to CPED, and very nice to see the change from asking HRM for the capital costs to understanding that it would be on them. There's a difference here, maybe even from our previous presenters, because previous presenters were talking about a nonprofit and in partnership, and this is a for-profit entity that wants to add an asset to an HRM building. So I'm a little bit leery about what that might be. In the report, there are a couple of questions. In the report, it did say that there's a question about whether or not the HVAC system can accommodate the expansion. And so if it needed to be in any way enhanced, would that be the cost to the Mooseheads? I'm wondering why HRM would have to pay for the consultant, because if they want to add an asset, then why would we have to pay that anywhere from, I think it was 50 to 100,000. So I'm not so much on board with that. And then when we looked at the contract and we talked about the terms, and we said it was 20 years, but it said 20 years plus the option for an additional 10. And so when we're talking about how they would, their rental is going to stay on their current space, but is it just during the construction repayment of that cost that they wouldn't have to pay a rent, and then afterwards they'd pay rent on the space? So I'm just wondering how, I'm just not clear exactly on the timeline of when they would actually have to start paying rent on the space. And when we think about the public benefit, absolutely, I know that the Mooseheads are a treasured sports entity within HRM. Councillor Mancini, I know you don't have to tell me again, but then again, it still is a for-profit entity, and they are making money using an HRM asset. And I think that it is prudent for us to make sure that if this does go ahead, that there is no cost to the taxpayer for it. So those are my questions. Thank you.
Councillor Daigle Gammon, before Brendan and Andy answer the question, I just want to say that perhaps you answer what you can in public, and if necessary, we can go in camera.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to make that comment. So.
Thank you.
Through the chair of the councillor, I think we'll have to go in camera for most of these responses.
Okay.
Could I have a motion to go in camera,
A motion
please?
to go in camera, please.
Okay, moved by Councillor Daigle Gammon, and I heard Deputy Mayor Cuttle say second it. So all those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Contrary minded, nay. The motion passed. Can non-committee Okay. Okay, we are back in public, and I see we have some people on the speakers list. We do require someone to put the motion on the floor. I see.
If we can also just briefly, Madam Chair, if that's all right, just have our motion to extend
yes.
to 12:30.
Oh yes, yes. Councillor Saint-Amand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we extend our meeting until, did we say 12:30 or okay. I'll extend our meeting until 12:30.
So, okay, Councillor. Okay, yes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Contrary minded, nay. The motion is passed. The meeting is extended until 12:30. Okay, and now we're at the point in the agenda where someone is being asked to put the motion on the floor. And Councillor Purdy, you've buzzed in first, so maybe you would do that, please.
I think Councillor Daigle Gammon is, yeah. I didn't press my button. Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Madam Chair, I put the motion on the floor that the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee 1 recommend that Regional Council direct the CAO to negotiate and execute a market rate lease agreement with the Halifax Mooseheads for the existing exclusive use space and the expanded building envelope at RBC Centre in Dartmouth, with terms and conditions satisfactory to the CAO, including detailed leasehold improvements and construction conditions for the proposed expansion, subject to the approval of a one-time consulting cost by Audit and Finance Standing Committee, and to refer to the Audit and Finance Standing Committee to consider an unbudgeted reserves withdrawal for one-time consulting fees as outlined in the financial implications section of the staff report dated March 23rd, 2026.
Thank you, Councillor Daigle Gammon, and Councillor Kent seconded the motion. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Daigle Gammon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would wish my colleagues on the committee to defeat this motion, and I do have an alternative motion for your consideration. Thank you.
The question has been called for. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye or raising their hand. Contrary minded, nay. The motion has been defeated. Councillor Daigle Gammon, I believe you indicated you have an alternative motion to put on the floor.
I do, Madam Chair. Thank you. Move that the Community Planning and Economic Standing Development Committee 1 recommend that Regional Council direct the CAO to negotiate and execute a market rate lease agreement with the Halifax Mooseheads for the existing exclusive use space and the expanded building envelope at RBC Centre in Dartmouth, with terms and conditions satisfactory to the CAO, including detailed leasehold improvements, consultant and construction conditions for the proposed expansion.
Thank you, Councillor Kent, for the second and for putting the motion on the floor. Councillor Daigle Gammon, is there any discussion?
No, I am confident with this motion and hope that the committee will approve.
Yeah. We're just waiting for the motion to be put on the screen. Okay, has everyone had a chance to read the motion? If they have, maybe we'll proceed to Councillor Mancini. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to go back to some earlier comments some of my colleagues made. Councillor Kent talked about exclusivity. I want to make sure it's clear the Mooseheads do not have exclusivity to the rink, the ice surface. They don't, right? That they have priority over that main rink. You also talked about hear from some residents about not inclusive to tournament style, the RBC Centre. It's not the case at all. I mean, we just finished the Sedmond tournament, which is the largest minor hockey tournament east of Montreal, right? And it continues to grow. So we have lots of tournaments in there. There is the centre where the Mooseheads do practice. That's the only spot that actually has seats in it. But just to clarify that, so there's a lot of tournaments that do take place there. The public benefit, others have asked about that and questioned the bathroom, and staff said that it wasn't on their list to add in the bathroom strategy. I do hear from those that use the volleyball asking for bathrooms at that end of the facility. I do hear from people that work in Burnside that walk that trail daily about bathrooms. So there is a benefit by having the bathrooms in that location. I guess my question to the staff is, you allude to community events. I'm not sure if you could clarify, because one of the things that popped in my head, could the Mooseheads do, as part of this arrangement, do an annual hockey school that they run and operate, and then we identify certain groups, or especially marginal groups that may not normally have advantage of it. Is that something that's a conversation that could be had?
Through the chair to the councillor, those opportunities are available to have the conversations with the Mooseheads, and we have shared the idea of events, and they're open to them. We haven't been on specifics on anything, but opportunities are there for things like that.
I just plant that seed. I mean, to be able to have minor hockey, have teams have professional coaching, and if Mooseheads are around to assist, to be part of that. I mean, that's pretty impressive, and that in itself would be a huge benefit to the community, for especially players, young players, boys and girls, who may not have exposure to that. So I think this is good. It's a partnerships, as we talked about before. There's indirect benefit to the community. The Mooseheads are huge to our community, our downtown core. They're going to invest in this. So I see the future, a lot more partnerships in our future at the municipality. So hope the committee supports the motion that's on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mancini. Deputy Mayor Cuttle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm looking back to the public benefit. There's a benefit here for the Mooseheads, both in terms of timing, in terms of being able to accelerate this project, adding on to an existing facility. For me, I have to look at HRM and our residents and say, what's in this partnership for us. Now, I realize there will be some nominal property tax benefit. There's still a cost to us to maintain this single bathroom, but going back to the fact that we didn't really ask for the single bathroom, and we wouldn't typically put in a single bathroom, I would like to include in the motion, if it's a friendly amendment, include detailed leasehold improvement, consultant, construction, and public benefit conditions for the proposed expansion. An alternative here is to ask, alternative number 2, is to ask for a second public washroom. So I know that this is something that has been put on the table. I have bigger questions about, is that where we need bathrooms or not? Is there a better spot in that facility for public bathrooms to serve the volleyball courts and the walking trail? But at the very least, I think that we need to put this in the motion, if it would be considered friendly, to add in public benefit conditions for the proposed expansion.
Councillor Daigle Gammon, do you consider this a friendly amendment?
May I ask a question of clarification of our deputy mayor?
Certainly.
So the addition is just outlining the public benefit, or is the condition asking for a second washroom? Because adding public benefit into the motion is acceptable, but detailing it as a second washroom would not be considered a friendly amendment.
Yeah, I don't want to define what the public benefit is. I just feel that, I'm stating this, that a single bathroom is not enough of a public benefit for me to support this motion or, this process, and I would be looking for some additional public benefit. So that's, the friendly amendment is public benefit into the motion, just saying public benefit as an addition. So it says including detailed leasehold improvement, consultant, construction, and public benefit conditions for the proposed expansion.
Councillor Daigle Gammon, is that acceptable to you?
Madam Chair, may I ask a clarifying question of our staff before I could consider that to be friendly?
Yes.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Putting public benefit into the negotiation, is that going to change or drastically, is your impression of adding that language in contrary to what you've already been discussing with the Mooseheads, or do you believe that to be in any way an issue?
Through the chair to the councillor, no, I don't believe that to be an issue. I will say through the discussions with the Mooseheads, they're open to what is it you would like. So
Wonderful. Then I consider it a friendly amendment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Daigle Gammon. And is that also considered friendly by the seconder? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Kent. So now we're dealing with an amended motion. Given that it's a friendly amendment, we just continue along. So Councillor Kent is next on the board.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to put my thoughts on record around the benefit of having a partner to produce infrastructure for the municipality that we otherwise may not have had. And I just want to acknowledge or speak to a comment made by Councillor Deputy Mayor around inheriting buildings that have already had an extended life. We do that all the time when we get schools. We inherited a lot of that when the municipality became the municipality. Like that's sort of an ongoing situation in a lot of cases. So I think that horse is out of the barn on that one in regards to how we do our business here at the municipality. But the public benefit, to me, I'm looking at this kind of partnership in a way that is about the impact on our future athletes, on how Halifax is perceived to be supportive of the organizations and the sports, particularly in this case, as a city that supports that. We benefit publicly all the time on folks that are coming to our city to enjoy the ability and think about the big championships that we have around, that our Mooseheads are competing in and such, and our amount of hockey players that we're so proud of on a global stage that we have here in that Sidney Crosby, Nate McKinnon, Brad Marchand. These young people will be able to have a more tangible space to potentially bump into some of our Moosehead players, to be inspired by them at a place that they already know they're there. Like, to me, that's a lot of public benefit that we cannot tangibly attach dollar figures to, but that in fact is, to me, a really important piece of the public benefit. I appreciate the whole notion of more bathrooms and things like that. I think that that's a natural place that our negotiators will sort of go down those roads. But I think we can't lose track of the net benefit of having an organization that has been with us for a very long time, who has put us on some stages that we may not have had, have brought people to our city that we otherwise wouldn't have, and most importantly, the inspiration factor for young people who are future hockey players who potentially could, be the next Sidney Crosby or Nate McKinnon or Brad Marchand. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. We'll move on now to Councillor Purdy.
Thank you. I just have a question on the public benefit piece. With the Wanderers or the Tides, with all the money that the municipality has kind of dished out for those, do we have any requirements for them to provide public benefit?
Through the chair to the councillor, that's I would say that's a completely different agreement. Their agreement is a rental contract with us to use the facility, whereas this is like an actual building that's being built. So,
but they also have a rental. It will be a lease, a rental contract.
They would have a leasehold agreement with us, which is different. So the Tides and the Wanderers book the Wanderers ground for their games from that perspective. So there's a transaction within that. The teams do public benefit within the community for other pieces like that. But it's a different agreement in terms of this is a leasehold agreement and theirs is a rental contract, similar to a contract that you would have with a minor hockey association for renting an ice. We don't ask them to do community benefit from that perspective.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Purdy. Deputy Mayor Cuttle.
So I just want to provide some more context to Councillor Purdy's question. Yes, the TARS Rugby is another example where they have built a facility with the public benefit of washrooms in that facility. So we do ask for public benefit, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Councillor Kent. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Contrary minded, nay. The motion has passed. Thank you. And thank you to Brendan and Andy and everyone for supporting us through this. We're now at past 12:30. I'm just going to consult with our clerk. We do have several agenda items. I understand that these items could be delayed or postponed. I'll be asking for a confirmation from the clerk to the next meeting. Everyone's in agreement. So I will, we're now then, so we've postponed the items. We're now at motions, added items.
If we
notices of
can, just for the deferral of the two staff items, 1312 Senior Recreation Services Plan and Transom Drive Park Plan. If we can just briefly make a motion to defer those for the agenda, that would be appreciated.
Okay. Do I have a volunteer to? Thank you, Councillor Cuttle, for both.
Second.
Okay, thank you. And so I see a number of names on the board, but I do have a notice of motion from Councillor Saint-Amand.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay, a deputy mayor made the motion to defer. Councillor Kent seconded, and now we'll have all those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Contrary minded, nay. We've the motion to defer has been approved, and now we'll move quickly to notices of motion. Vice Chair Saint-Amand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Please take notice that at a future meeting of Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee, I intend to move a motion to rescind the additional motion for item 12.1.1 from January 16th, 2020 CPED meeting, which requested a staff report as follows. That the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee, 1, request a staff report regarding options and opportunities for a long-term program for complete streets and streetscaping for the suburban commercial main streets in the urban service area outside regional center, which updates the rationale and priorities for projects and establishes stable long-term funding. And 2, that staff review the letters received and consult with from the suburban business improvement districts in development of the program.
Thank you, Councillor Saint-Amand. So our next meeting will be May 21st, 2026. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please? Thank you, Councillor Saint-Amand. And the time of adjournment is 12:40. Thanks all.